Hi, it's the 13th of February, 2018, and I want to talk to you today about another childbirth truth. And it's true globally, and it's been true throughout time. There is no way to know what your birth's going to be like. That's just a truth. There's no way to know what your birth's going to be like. So we have to face the truth. That's what we're faced with. Every pregnant woman is faced with that truth. There's no way to know what your birth's going to be like. And that's been followed by a sentence that says, therefore, there's nothing you can really do to prepare for it. That's a sentence that irks us. It's like we are thrown into the most uncontrolled circumstance. We already know that because we're pregnant. As soon as we get pregnant, we realize that we have no control over this, that we have another child, another human being growing inside of us, and they seem to take over our body. So in a lot of ways, pregnancy is sort of the example of really there's nothing you can do about it. You don't know what it's going to be like. It's unexpected. It takes strange turns. And so as we face our birth, we are faced with this truth. There's no way to know what your birth's going to be like. And that just drives most of us nuts and around the corner. We want to have some control. And we do it right now through making a birth plan. We believe that one is that we're told we know what kind of birth we want. So we're encouraged to tell others, our obstetrician, our midwife, our partners, our families, what kind of birth we want. And we're encouraged to do research about it and to write down a birth plan about all the things we want and we don't want. So we're planning. That's a plan. So we're planning the birth as we would like it to unfold. Well, how do women want birth to unfold? Well, all of us want a safe and healthy birth for ourselves and our baby. That's paramount. And on top of that, we want to have a positive experience. We want to feel that we have some control over this truth, which tells us no way to know what your birth's going to be like. So what's the reality? The reality is that's a truth, but it's followed by a statement that's untrue. There's nothing you can do to prepare for it. And a birth plan really isn't the best way to stay in control. Instead, because let's put it this way, when you see birth as something you can plan, then you see it as an event that happens. So we plan a wedding, we plan a vacation, we plan a birthday. And when we plan those things, we make lists and we do all those things, and that makes us feel in control. We feel that we can produce an event that looks somewhat like what we have in our mind. And so at the present time, we're doing that around birth. But birth isn't an event. It's also something that happens to you, which is what coincides with that statement, which is there's no way to know what your birth's going to be like. So it's something that happens to you that we have no control over. So that's what the childbirth conversation is set around right now. Either plan it as an event with a birth plan, or just accept, don't know what it's going to be like. But there's a third way we need to see birth, which is the basis of all the birthing better skills that families developed in the early 1970s. Was they looked at, we didn't have choices, so we couldn't see it as an event. We knew the truth. And so what were we left with? We were left with the fact that giving birth is an activity. We have to do the birth. And no matter how many people are with us in the room, we as women are the only people who are doing the activity, really. We're doing it with our baby. And it doesn't matter where we're birthing or who's present or what happens to us around us. We are the only ones doing pregnancy, and we're the only ones doing the birth. So doing is a word about an activity. We do this activity of birthing our baby, and we can do that by having a labor and having a vaginal exam, or we can having a vaginal birth. We can do it by having a labor and having an unplanned surgical birth, or we can do it by having an elective non-laboring cesarean. We are always doing the activity of giving birth as a mother because we're always doing the activity of being pregnant. And giving birth, we're still pregnant. We're not pregnant after we've given birth, but birth is part of pregnancy. It's the end of pregnancy. And birth is the natural conclusion of pregnancy. So, is there anything that we can do to prepare for our birth? Oh, yes, you can. So Birthing Better skills were developed by hundreds of families because that was the answer that we wanted to give. Is there anything that we can do to prepare for our birth? And what we already knew in the 70s was that there were 3 skills-based resources out there, Lamaze and Bradley and Grantley Dick Reed. And they'd been around since the 50s or 60s. And in the United States, Lamaze was taught probably in every hospital in the United States, every small town, every big city. Everybody went to Lamaze classes. We learned to do this. And we learned to be a rag doll. And our husbands learned to time contractions and see if we were relaxed. That worked for some people, but it didn't work for many, many more. And those 3 skills-based systems from the 50s to the 70s were targeted only to women who want to have a natural birth, a pain-free labor, and less medical care. And that was the original sin. They should have just said every woman who is pregnant has to do the activity of birthing her baby, no matter where she births, who's present, or what happens to her around her. But we have to forgive them because that was the beginning of even thinking that there were skills around childbirth. I've lived for many years in third world countries. I haven't been involved with birth, but I've talked to a lot of people about birth in villages. They don't have skills to birth. They have skills how to prepare for birth, but they're dealing with the truth as well. There's no way to know what your birth's going to be like. So therefore, they don't really have skills in place to do the birth. They have skills before and after because they can have control over those times. So you need to understand that the original sin in childbirth was that these 3 wonderful male obstetricians, Lamaze, Bradley, and Grantley Dick Reed, didn't get the fact that all pregnant women are doing the activity of birthing their baby, just as all babies are doing the activity of being born. So that didn't achieve those 3 goals for a small select group of people. So eventually in the 70s, the new generation of birth advocates said skills don't work, cows and cats aren't taught to birth, birth is something women have always done, we instinctively know how to do it, we just need to be left alone, we need to just say no to medical care. And so the birth plans were developed. That was a way of controlling this truth. If there's no way to know what your birth's going to be like, and skills don't work to produce a pain-free natural birth, well, then skills don't work. That was a mistake. They do work, right? They work brilliantly, but those aren't the goals. The goals are for us to be in control and to stay on top of the sensations we have internally and the sensations that come from the things that happen externally to us. Gee whiz, and that might be that we had a snowstorm, right? That's an external. Then we have to get to the hospital, or our midwife has trouble getting to the home. That's an external factor. So when the birth plans, the childbirth trend about birth plans came, skills were pushed aside, and that was the second original sin. Because if people had had the wisdom back there to say, every pregnant woman can have skills to birth her baby, no matter where, who's present, and what's happening, we would not be in the conversation we have today. So had skills and choice moved together, we would have found that some women choose less medical care, some women choose more medical care. That's fine. We can all be skilled. Doesn't matter, right? So, but that didn't happen. So skills are put aside. Cats and cows aren't taught to birth. It's instinctual. Women will know what to do at the day. You don't need to be taught breathing. Men shouldn't coach because you don't want them sitting on the sideline going push, push, push. They should just support your choices. So all the myths that I gave, I think 40 talks on the myths of childbirth, which are now on YouTube in a playlist at Birthing Better Childbirth Preparation YouTube channel. We talked about the myths of childbirth. So the myth isn't the truth. The first part is true. You never know what your birth's going to be like. The myth is there's nothing you can do to prepare for it. So Birthing Better families learn to redevelop skills to prepare our body for birth. And we started around 24 weeks because our minds were clear enough. And we didn't start beforehand because we weren't thinking about the birth. We were barely feeling the baby move until 20 weeks or 22 weeks. But at 24 weeks, when our uterus got up to our navel, we began to think about the birth because we now knew we were more than halfway through our pregnancy. And from 24 to 36 weeks, the baby grows very rapidly, and our uterus moves from at our navel to then really coming up under our rib cage and diaphragm. So increasingly we think more about the birth. But at 24 weeks is a golden period from 24 weeks to 36 weeks, and our mind is very clear. Towards the end of that, we start to get a baby brain. We're thinking about the baby. We're thinking about all the things the baby is going to impact in our life. And our hormones begin to focus us into that nesting. So our minds are not as sharp and clear to learn skills. So when we start to learn skills at 24 weeks, we have a time that we can learn very small periods of time during the day to create space in our body. Now, women who are going to have non-laboring cesareans, our bodies are still preparing to labor and have a vaginal birth. Our mind knows we're not going to do it, but we can enjoy our pregnancy. We can enjoy preparing for the birth of our baby in the same manner. Why not? Really, we need to, and we should learn the skills so that we use them on the way to the hospital while being prepped and during surgery, because on the way to the hospital is like our labor, being prepped is like our transition, and surgery is our baby's birth. So we're doing the activity. It's time. We're filling time. That's an activity, right? So when we prepare our body, what Birthing Better families discovered is that we had to create space for this big object to get out of us. No kidding. We, in the 1970s to today, are told to do pelvic floor exercises to prepare for birth. That's crazy. We're tightening up down there as though we need strong muscles to push our baby out. No, we don't. We need to be open. We need to be mobile. We need to be soft. We need to create space. This is a big object. It's an exercise in plumbing. Who would want to constrict a container when a big object is trying to come out? So we had to debunk these myths, and I talked about that in one of the, it sounds silly now, but women are still being told to do this. So we had to create space. So we have skills like the hip lift, how to create space sideways between the sit bones. Most of us don't even know we're sitting on bones. But when you're listening to this now, sit on your bones. That's the space your baby has to come out. And from the front to the back, from your vagina to your tailbone, that's the space. So we can map that space and know what space our baby has to come through. And that space is a bony structure, but it's not a fixed bony structure. It's made up of the hip blade that meets at the pubic bone, another hip blade that meets the pubic bone, and the back meets on top of this triangular bone that comes down the spine. It's the sacrum, and the sacrum has a lot of mobility, and these big hip blades can move in certain directions, and they happen to move like a fulcrum, like this, only if you are lying on your side. Or when you're standing up, they can move up and down like this. And so we experimented with our body to figure out how to create space for our baby, because our birth stories were telling us that some babies got stuck, or we had long labors, or we had long second stages. So if we're always seeing a big object having to come out of a container, we're always seeing our need to create space, be soft and mobile, then we fiddled with our body. We learned the hip lift, that was one of our skills. We learned the sacral maneuver, how to move the sacrum, and we do that lying down, and then we can do that standing up with Kate's cat. So if you stand up now, well, don't stand up now, maybe stand up now, I don't know. Stand up now, and then as this one woman said, I don't get it. So then she said, oh yes, I do. Okay, point my rectum to the floor, and then try to point my rectum to the back wall. Well, we all got it. That's how real we had to be. We learned we had to prepare the inside of our vagina, that what was being now promoted, the perineal massage, was nonsense, really. The tiny strip of tissue that's part of the ring of fire, that's nothing. We have a vagina that's about 3 inches deep, and we have soft tissue on each side, on the inside of the tailbone to the sit bones. Those are the bones you sit on. From the back of the rectum, each side of the rectum, and the wall of this bony structure. Your baby has to come through that. A lot of people have a toothpaste tube viewpoint about birth. It's like the baby's big in your belly, but during birth it's sort of gets down to about that big, and then it sort of squirts out the vagina and gets on the perineum and goes pop. But we know when we're giving birth that's not happening. So we need to prepare the inside, and that's called the internal work. So there's lots of skills to prepare your body, and we have them in the Birthing Better resources. But then there were skills so that we had to cope with the internal and external sensations. Now, what was fortunate about all of this is there's another truth. We're all one humanity, right? Nobody gets pregnant by carrying a baby in the back of your body or at your big toe. Nobody gives birth out your ear, right? Or the top of your head. So we get pregnant the same way, even if it's an artificial insemination, and we give birth the same way. And women who have cesareans, we're still birthing our baby, so we can still use skills. So we are all one humanity, all women. We're either pregnant or not, and if we're pregnant, 100% of us are going to give birth. These are truths. But we're also one humanity with the men. We all blink. We all cough. We can all tighten up our rectum, which meant we developed skills based on our commonality. All of us breathe 4 ways. We breathe in and out the nose, out the mouth, in the mouth, out the nose, and in and out the mouth. In those 4 breathing patterns that all humans do, we can find for ourselves the breathing patterns that we can use to relax and to deal with internal and external sensations. And our partner can learn those too. We can learn them together, which means that if we find a pattern that's in the nose and out the mouth that sounds like this, and then we sound like, we're still in the nose and out the mouth, but our partner can hear it, and then they can model the good pattern. They know that the second one sounds stressful and the first one sounds like we're in control. What changed? The internal sensation may have changed, or something externally may have been done to us that we got reactive to. So we learned the breathing skills. We learned the communication skills. For instance, a man reaches for you to try to help in birth, and you push him away and say, "Don't touch me." And he doesn't want to touch you again. But instead, we can learn, shake our head. He can learn that's no. He takes his hands off. We can shake our head. He knows he can put his hand back on us. We can take his hand and put it where we'd like it to be. This is nonverbal communication. We can understand it together. So we developed the Birthing Better skills to prepare our body and the skills to cope and manage as we worked through our baby's birth journey. We took skills away from the goals of a natural birth. Certainly, skilled people are more likely to have a natural birth. Skilled women are much more likely to cope with the natural occurring pain. But it doesn't matter whether you have lots of medical care or not. When you use skills, you are naturally working through this journey your baby is taking. So, it's nothing you don't know what your birth's going to be like, but there's lots you can do to prepare for your birth by becoming a skilled mother and a skilled father. So how do you support our trust efforts? Our trust is called Common Knowledge. Good name. We have a PayPal account. You can give a donation at info@birthingbetter.com. That was the first email we set up the account, but we're now birthingbetter.org. So you can email us at info@birthingbetter.org. You can share our Facebook at Birthing Better Childbirth Preparation. Share this video. Comment on it. What are the truths about childbirth you want me to discuss? Because I developed these skills with hundreds of families, and I've dedicated 45 years of my life to growing skilled birthing mothers and fathers around the world. Why not? What other option do we have? Birth plans are failing us. Focusing skills only on a tiny group of people failed us. What's next? Well, we know what's next. Everybody should be skilled to birth their baby. And we should be encouraged to use skills, and we should be praised when we do use them. So see you tomorrow with another Truth About Childbirth. Bye-bye.